Everybody, welcome to the Makeup Chair. So today we're doing a look for the more mature woman. I got a lot of requests from people who are kind of in the mature category who wanted to know some tips and techniques for their older skin and stuff. So I managed to get my mom in to be on YouTube and to do this video with me, and I've kind of asked her what she uses and stuff like that, and I've kind of worked out kind of the best things from my own research and stuff like that that I think will really help older women. So if you are one of those, then just keep watching. So let's talk about the characteristics of mature skin. Basically, as your skin gets a little bit older, and when I say a little bit older, I'm talking about like late 30s to 40s and then upwards, your skin can get a little bit more drier, gets a little bit sagging, a little bit duller, and that's all kind of to do with lack of moisture and lack of water, because a lot of people will think that, oh, my skin looks dry, so I'm going to use some moisturizer, and they use expensive brands because they're not getting the same results. But actually it's dehydrated, which is actually different to being dry. Basically, the dehydration is from the inner part, so you got to make sure you're having enough water for your system. And you want to avoid things like coffee and stuff, and some alcohols as well, because they actually take away that natural kind of process of hydrating the skin. You know, caffeine is very, very dehydrating. It will take away the moisture from the cells and stuff like that. So instead of having something that has a lot of caffeine in it, you could try a decaf, or you could try, like, if you're really into your teas and stuff like that, you can try green tea without the caffeine, because it actually has all the goodness of the green tea without having that caffeine, so it's not going to be dehydrating. Or remember to drink plenty of water, because it plumps up the skin. It really, really does. It'll plump up the skin. It'll give the skin a much kind of brighter appearance as well, which is kind of counteracting that dullness that you can get when your skin starts to get a little bit older. Also, moisturizing. Moisturizing is very, very important. There's two types that you should be using. You should be using well, like three types pretty much. You should be using a sunscreen. No matter what the season is, you should make sure that you have a sunscreen. That is something that I always remember my mom having, is sunscreen in her bag. And whenever I smell sunscreen, I always think of my mom, because she just always has used it ever since I can remember. And you put that on underneath your normal moisturizer. The moisturizer you put over it doesn't have to be expensive. You know, just have it making sure it kind of suits your skin type and stuff like that. I would say that Nivea, just a little pot of blue Nivea, works wonders. I mean, you know, it suits pretty much every skin type. I use it, my sister uses it, and my mom uses it. And it's just that overall kind of creaminess and stuff like that. So it's really going to help to moisturize the skin. And also a night cream, which is kind of the third thing. Having a night cream or something like an eye cream and something like that, it's kind of more of an extra, but I would suggest to do it every so often. If not like every night. As you get a little bit older, you can probably start using it every night. But a really nice night cream. So I would say to use a sunscreen, a moisturizer, and then a night cream or an eye cream every so often as well. Okay, so let's move on to the makeup. So the very first thing you want to do is prep and prime the skin. So this is prepping it. So I actually gave her a facial the day before so that her skin was nice and smooth and soft and stuff. And then right before I did the makeup, I applied a primer. Applied the primer all over the face. I also applied some primer to the eyelids, because it's going to soften the eyelids. It's going to prevent against creasing and stuff like that. And I've also added a little bit onto the lips as well. The reason I added it onto the lips is because as your kind of lips get a little bit older, you start to get little lines and stuff, and they lose that fullness that they once had. So using something that's like a volumizing primer actually helps for your lipsticks and stuff to stick to them better. Let's move on to the foundation. I'm using two types of foundation. My first foundation is just kind of there to almost prime the skin again. It just allows the rest of the makeup to stick on a little bit better. So I applied it all over the face. It's kind of a lighter shade, and it just adds a little bit brightness. Then I took my second foundation, which pretty much matches my mom's skin tone. I applied that onto the face, and then I used a sponge to blend it completely. So you want to make sure that it's all blended, and that it kind of gives a more softer kind of look when you apply it with like a wet sponge and stuff like that. So if you just dab that over the skin, making sure it's completely blended. Your skin, as you get older, gets a little bit thinner, so you can afford to use a little bit more of a creamier, moussey, thicker consistency, but you also don't want to make it look so heavy. So that's why I've gone over with the damp sponge, just to give it a kind of a lighter touch. Used two types of concealer. My first concealer was a light one and then a dark one. I placed a little bit onto the back of my hand. I applied the light one across the cheeks. just because they were a little bit thinner there across the cheek area, and underneath the eye can be a little bit thinner, so I applied it under there. Then I used a lighter shade onto the top of the lids, and that just gives a really nice base for when we're actually doing our eye makeup a little bit later on. So next you want to seal all your makeup. So I've actually taken a really soft loose powder. The reason I'm using a loose powder rather than pressed powders just seem a little bit more caked on, whereas if you're using a loose powder with a very, very big fat brush, it actually gives it a lighter kind of touch to it. Then I've actually taken, it's kind of like a kabuki brush, but it's this flat kind of brush like this. And the reason I use this is because it buffs the skin. And I just did little circles, and that just kind of softens the face so it's not, the powder isn't too much or anything like that, and it also helps to blend the foundation if it's not already blended. Apply your blush. I would say to use something that's not too pinky pink, but also not too like dull and dark. You want to use something that's slightly kind of brighter so it gives a nice bright appearance to the skin. I've used a kind of a pinky one on my mom's cheeks. Asked her to smile and made sure you got the apple of the cheek right up to the ear, and that's just going to give a really nice subtle glow. And you also want to make sure you blend it really well. I took a highlighter. You can use a liquid highlighter if you want, something like High Beam by Benefit, but I would say to put that underneath your powders that you've already put on top. Place this on the top of the cheekbones, right underneath the eye, and it just kind of gives a real lift to the cheekbones. Next we're going to move on to the eyebrows. Now the eyebrows shape the face, the entire face, and they especially shape the eyes, and they give a more youthful appearance. So you want to make sure that you do fill them in. It's something that a lot of women do forget about, especially because, if they wear glasses, you can't really see them very well. I'm just going to fill them in with a very kind of dull eyeshadow in a brown, which is close to my mom's hair color. So I've just filled them in very evenly all over, and then you just want to comb through them so it looks really natural. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the eyeshadow. The first shade that I took was 554 by Art Deco. It's this very nice light kind of shade, and I applied this all over the lid and then up to the eyebrows. It's a matte color. You want to stick to using matte colors when you get a little bit older. Anything too shimmery will just sit in the lines in your face and it can look a little bit outdated for you. Next I moved on to number 16. This is another Art Deco shade. Now this does actually have a little bit of shimmer to it, but it's a very soft shimmer. It's it's not too intense. I actually placed this because my mom's eyes are slightly wide apart. I didn't want to just place it on the outer part of the eye, so I brought it in a little bit further just so they don't look like too spaced apart or anything like that. So I basically applied it all over the lid and bring it up a little bit higher so the white is still on the lower part near the lash line, and then the brown is going over the top of that and into the crease. Next thing that we took was a liner. I actually lined the entire waterline. As you get a little bit older, you might want to stop using a very black and start using, instead of like an intense black, use a normal black, and then move on to using a brown, because it kind of softens your features and it adds definition to the eyes without being a little bit too harsh. So now we're going to move on to lashes. So you want to really curl the lashes quite well. Then I used a double-ended mascara. The first one is a white mascara. It actually adds volume and it conditions the lashes. And then I took the black side and I applied that all over. Now you can try using a brown one if you have slightly lighter features. And the older you get, you should be using slightly lighter colours in your eyes anyway. Next we moved on to the lips. I took this sponge that had a little bit of foundation on it, dabbed that over the lips, and it actually gives a really nice base. Pencil and line just outside the normal lip line, so it just adds a little bit more volume. I took a nice reddish pinkish tone of a lipstick and I applied that onto the lips. It's once again a volumizing, moisturizing lipstick. And I took a lip gloss. Now the lip gloss that I'm using isn't too glossy. It's a soft kind of satin shimmer to it, so it doesn't look too intense on the lips, and I'm using it in a slightly darker color so it's not too bright and intense for the slightly mature woman. So that is pretty much it. That's all you really need to know when you're doing a full face of makeup. Pick and choose whatever you want from this look, and if you have any questions, just ask me. You can write here, or you can ask on Formspring, or you can ask on Facebook if you just add me as a friend. So I really hope that you enjoyed that, and thank you so much to my mom for coming into the video, and I'm Sineadycady, and thanks for watching.